Altriz Wormwood, widely known as the Undying Scourge, deftly opened a portal to the engineered terrain of a remote, undeveloped planet. With a grand gesture and his tendril-rich hand, his expression marked by resolute determination. Despite the depletion of my forces, it is of no consequence. I will simply summon more. Engagements with universal entities of lights and justice had nullified the necromancer's former legions, thwarting his invasions and liberating the souls of his enslaved from their mortal remains before Altriz could overpower and convert those detestable champions of vitality and nature. Altriz stepped through his eerie, verdant, spectral gateway, leaving the devastated moon where he had sought refuge after his recent defeat, and ventured into a new realm, one he recognized despite not fully identifying it. Upon arrival, he grimaced, instantly overwhelmed by the fragrance of lush foliage. The aroma irritated his eyes, induced spasms in his tentacles, and caused his nostrils to twitch and expand. Shielding his face, Altriz ascended, seeking a region on this planet more conducive to his affinity for mortality and decay. Feeling a surge of decay, he was overtaken by relief. He glided toward the source, moving through the air, feeling liberated once the vegetative environment gave way to a barren, desolate expanse with a hint of sulfur that Altriz couldn't precisely identify. He alighted, knees slightly bent, and began to survey the vicinity with his device, aiming to ascertain the origin of the odor and the number of deceased present. The analysis was swift and, though not entirely resolving Altriz's queries, confirmed his suspicion. The location was a site of an ancient battle. The dead had remained for an extended period, and some form of chemical arms had been employed effectively in this clash, as evidenced by the extensive swath of lifeless terrain. These souls would seek vengeance. They perished unfulfilled, deprived of the chance to battle for their beliefs. They would be susceptible to manipulation, coercion, and conversion. Altriz evaluated the dead. He was astounded by the quantity, 110,000 skeletons, surpassing the totals from his last 3 battlefield visits combined. He hoped these spirits possessed the strength to match their numbers. He unearthed a skeleton, extracting it from the ground, arranging its bones meticulously in their presumed correct positions, preparing for his dark ritual. The assembled creature with 206 bones appeared unlike any he had encountered, bipedal like him, but distinct in stature, form, and robustness from other species he had encountered. After examining several more skeletons for comparison and confirming this was characteristic of this species, Altriz animated the first skeleton, observing as it assembled itself and transitioned from levitating and radiating a green glow to simply glowing, gazing at its new master with a perpetual grin. "What's happening?" the skeleton inquired, causing Altriz to blink in surprise. "What did you say?" The skeleton stretched. "Speaking again," I asked. "What's happening? Moments ago I was asleep, and now I'm here conversing with you, so can you enlighten me, or shall I return to my slumber?" "What?" For the first time in ages, Altriz contemplated revisiting the forbidden tome for insight into the summoning arts he believed he had mastered. Clearing his throat, he struggled to maintain his poise. Handling thralls can be challenging. He must remain composed. You were a warrior. Your eternal soul has lingered in the ether indefinitely, and now, at your moment of destiny, I, the Undying Scourge, have summoned you to serve me. The towering skeleton looked down at him momentarily, then erupted into laughter. Unbelievable. You had me for a moment. You had me for a moment. Your ancient mystic rhetoric is convincing. You are deceased. Losing his calm, Altriz conjured a tall mirror, presenting it to the skeletal construct he had formed, pointing at it. Observe, behold your reflection, and recognize that you have departed from the living. After a lengthy examination of its reflection, tapping a skeletal finger on its chin, the skeleton eventually shrugged. Incorrect. I would be aware if I were deceased. I wouldn't be engaging in conversation with you. Frustrated, Altriz briskly turned to revive another skeleton, disregarding the nonsensical babbling of the first. Perhaps this was an anomaly, and subsequent resurrections would yield entities more aligned with the dead he typically encountered. The second skeleton sprang to life with an exclamation, retreating a few steps in total confusion before his gaze met the first skeleton's. Keith. Matty boy, exclaimed the first skeleton, hastening to his friend with a rapid clatter of skeletal limbs, giving him a hearty slap on the back. How on earth did you recognize me? Just a wild guess, mate. Thought if anyone could get into this kind of mess, it'd be you. So, we're hallucinating, right? Skeleton 1 concluded, nodding as if confirming his own suspicion. We must be hallucinating. The sergeant's going to have our heads for this. We're already in hot water as it is. But you've been annihilated by a thermoplasmic weapon, if I'm not mistaken. Who's this guy? Asked Skeleton 2, still appearing somewhat unsteady. He pointed a slender, osseous finger at Altriz. Do you see him as well? Yes. Quite peculiar, isn't it? He was rambling about me being deceased or something along those lines. Oh, great. Skeleton 2 approached Altriz, brandishing the finger he had used to point earlier. Listen, you can't just spout nonsense like that to people, especially when they're under the influence. You need to be considerate, understand, avoid creating a negative atmosphere. The problem is, he didn't believe me. Altriz was perplexed as to why he was attempting to communicate logically with these beings. His prior experiences had not prepared him for such a situation. What must I do to convince you? You're amidst a wasteland surrounded by your millennia, old fallen comrades. Keep it down, will you? Skeleton 2 responded. Just because you resemble something out of a Lovecraftian tale doesn't grant you the right to disrupt our mood. Take it easy. Maybe try an eddy. Altriz was clueless about what an eddy might be, but he was fairly certain it wouldn't aid in assembling his undead legion, nor would continuing this dialogue with these two. Just when Altriz was about to abandon hope and start anew, Skeleton 2 interjected, raising his hand as if wanting to speak. Altriz massaged his forehead. Yes. After a brief discussion with my compatriot here, we've deduced that we are indeed skeletons. A pause ensued. And it's likely the rest of what you've mentioned is also true. A glimmer of hope appeared in this most vexing and gloomy situation. Altriz dared to feel optimistic. Does this mean you're prepared to consider my offer? Not exactly. We're actually pondering why we're skeletons. Altriz sensed the tension rising within him. Explain? We were deceased, correct, lifeless, buried, absent. Skeleton 1 gestured towards one of the dormant skeletons for emphasis, similar to that one over there. Yes. It was relatively peaceful, comparable to an extended rest. Impatiently, Altriz nodded. Yet, you've disrupted that. Do you see the issue now? With a scowl, Altriz faced the duo. Indeed, I do now. Crafting a spell of control was not challenging. Many beings proved more amenable in death, but dealing with obstinate, spirited forces like this required a straightforward method to compel their service. As Altriz invoked the ancient incantation, the skeletons regarded him as though he had lost his senses. Upon concluding, with sigil lines drawn through the air encircling the battlefield, the first skeleton impatiently tapped his foot. Look, we've been rather tolerant with you thus far, but if we're truly deceased, this essentially becomes our new abode, and you weren't invited. Hence, if you'd kindly revoke our awareness and depart. Altries gazed in desperation at the spell lines sprawling across the sky for miles. Lines he had refined over centuries, lines he believed would finally quell the incessant babble of the being before him, compelling him into obedience, justifying the expenditure of his magical energy. Why are they ineffective? In desperation, Altries commenced reviving additional skeletons in search of one that might cooperate. Spencer. Incredible, how intoxicated are we? Davy. Settle down, I'll join shortly. Hadak Choi Buzu Narg. Why awaken him? He's from the opposing side. As Altries expended more magical energy, he affixed ethereal chains to the warriors, raising hundreds, then thousands, each chain linked to his tendrils, pulling the soldiers closer, binding them. Every motion and spell reinforcement a display of his necromantic expertise. His command: you are deceased, forgotten warriors without will, place, or power, and you shall serve me until your ultimate demise, acknowledging me as master, for I am the undying scourge, and you are merely... Absolutely not. I refuse to collaborate with Gary once more. You'd need to subject me to torture. Is there a comprehensive health plan, including dental? Ever heard of human rights, or are those deemed optional in your realm? Amid the cacophony from the resurrected warriors, a term caught Altries' attention. However, it was paradoxically familiar yet unfamiliar, not because he didn't comprehend it, but because it was mentioned prominently at the beginning of the Forbidden Tome, in one of the initial chapters, highlighted in bold. It referred to a species he had yet to encounter. Human. The text described a species so resistant to magical influence that it was utterly ineffectual against them. A species capable of defying every necromancer's command. A species so innately immune to magical coercion that entire empires had avoided their solar system, deeming them unconquerable. Altries inadvertently found himself on a planet inhabited by humans without realizing the significance. A grave error indeed. I'll comply if there's compensation. Given my prior rank as a lieutenant, I warrant higher remuneration. That's rubbish, you deceitful skeleton. You're just attempting to surpass us. Indeed, I was. Possessing a legal degree prior to my enlistment earned me an officer's position. Then enumerate 10 statutes. During such exchanges, Altries activated another portal and departed, amidst the myriad conversations unfolding on the battlefield, where the exceptionally magic consuming resurrection spell continued to wreak havoc. What an utter waste of effort. Humans, indeed. Altries exhaled, surveying his somber abode. Life as a necromancer was disheartening. His choice was influenced by severe hay fever. Dead entities did not provoke his allergies. He served himself some wine, pondering over his recent setbacks, the legacy he intended to build over 4 centuries, and his failed attempts to plunge the universe into an era of demise and obscurity. He acknowledged his recent tense and possibly isolated state. Altries admitted the need to relax. Rather than focusing on reviving an army of the deceased, he contemplated discovering what an eddy was. Perhaps there was potential in compensating the deceased Earth inhabitants with them.